Hi, I'm Liz with Liz's Crafts, and today I'm going to be bringing you printing on tissue paper, then decoupaging on wood. And I'm using just an inkjet printer. So the first one is a picture of my first grandchild, and I've already printed it on my printer, and I have this little piece of wood from the Dollar Tree, and I have my apple barrel white acrylic paint. And we're going to paint the top and the sides of this wood piece with the paint. And we're going to give it 2 good coats. There it is, all done. And you want to wait until it's dry and put on your Mod Podge. Now I'm just using my homemade Mod Podge, which is like the matte Mod Podge you buy at the store. Very easy to make if you want. It's like it's a cup of either school glue or all-purpose glue from Elmer's and a 1/4 cup of water, and you just mix them together. So I have my tissue paper, and I'm just going to decoupage it onto this piece of wood. So I had my ceiling fan on, and it was kind of drying out my Mod Podge. Now you can also do this with your iron after your Mod Podge dries. I did not want to do that, however. I don't want to have to break out my iron. So I'm just doing it while it's wet. And then I'm just going to apply my tissue paper to my wood piece. And it's pretty forgiving. You can pull it up and place it down again and pull it up a couple times. Just be careful not to tear it. And what I do is I tape my tissue paper using double-sided tape in the corners of the piece, and I use just a piece of 8.5 by 11 cardstock. Put the double-sided tape in the corners and lay the tissue paper on top of it with the shiny side towards the cardstock. So I'm just pressing down a little bit, smoothing out my tissue paper picture on my piece of wood here. Now I'm not pressing down very hard, and I'm just going to take the excess tissue paper off with a fingernail file, and I'm using the finer side of the fingernail file for this. It doesn't take much to tear or sand off the edges of the tissue paper. So this past Sunday, my kids and grandkids went to a field of bluebonnets and took pictures. And I wanted to make some photo pieces for them to hang on their walls. So once I have that decoupaged on the wood, I'm just going to create a hanger using some jute twine. Just have a little piece of the twine, and I'm putting knots in both ends. And I'm going to put it on the back piece of the wood and just use my staple gun. And I'm going to put the staple as close to the knot as I can get it from the inside there. And that way it'll hang nicely on the wall, either with a hook or a nail. And then the last thing I do, and you want to make sure that everything is dry before you do this, is I have this Collage Page Instant Decoupage Glossy that I got from Hobby Lobby years ago. But you could also use Mod Podge, or you can use the Spray Clear spray paint. For this one, I decided I needed to use this because I've had it for a long time and it needs to be used. So it's made by Aleene's, Aleene's, ALEENE''S. It says it's water resistant, glue, sealer, and finish, and it is acid free. So I just put 1 coat on here, but you could put more than one if you wanted to. Now, if You really need to wait several hours before you do this because it could smear the ink that is on your tissue paper. And there it is. This one is complete. There's my first grandchild. Now for the second grandchild. So he was out in this field of flowers, and he has one in his hand there, and he's sniffing it. And no, it is not illegal to pick bluebonnets as long as they're like in an open field. It is, however, illegal to go into someone's specific field and take pictures of bluebonnets. I mean, you could take pictures, but you can't like go into their field and take pictures. That is trespassing, and that is illegal. So I just again printed up the photo of him on my tissue paper, and I have painted the piece of wood. It was just like the wood in the previous DIY. Same paint, everything. And now I'm going to use my homemade Mod Podge to attach the photo to the piece of wood, just like I did in the other one. Let me know if you've ever tried this before. This was my first time printing on tissue paper. Now this is just white tissue paper. It doesn't have any design or anything on it, just regular white tissue paper. And I was actually able to use one piece of tissue paper for all 4 of these projects. So it's a very affordable way to get photos on wood. And I think it's a lot easier than putting your photos on copy paper, putting Mod Podge on it, putting it face down, and then rubbing it off. I've tried that before and have not had any luck with it. Probably because I didn't let it sit overnight. But this, you don't need to let it sit overnight. It's pretty instantaneous, and that's what I like. So if you haven't tried this, you might want to try it, because I thought it turned out really good. So again, I'm just taking my fingernail file and going over the edges of the tissue paper so that the excess will come off of our wood piece there. And you want to use the finer sanded side of your fingernail file. And there that is. I'm going to put a hanger on the back of it. And then I didn't show it, but I did put the glossy decoupage on top of the photo for this one also. I did just do one coat. Like I said, you could do more than one coat if you wanted to. And here it is hanging on my wall. Isn't he cute with his blue bonnet? And now on to the third grand. So we're going to be using this wood piece. I got it from the Goodwill store for $1.99. I know that Hobby Lobby has these pieces, and so does the Dollar Tree. The Dollar Tree wants $5 for them. I think you can get them at Walmart also. So again, I'm just taking my acrylic paint and I'm painting just the top side of this piece. And I'm kind of leaving the bark there unpainted. But as you see later, I will be painting it with a darker paint. So I dry it, and I do give this 2 coats of the white acrylic paint. I dry that. Once that is dry, then I add my Mod Podge, my homemade Mod Podge. So here's a photo that I printed out of my third grandchild. She has her little Pumie in her lap. So the older grands are my son's grandchildren, and this youngest grandchild is my daughter's child. So we only have 3 grandkids. Let me know how many grandkids you all have. Just put it in the comments. We'd love to hear what you have to say. And do you think you'll be trying this? I hope I've inspired someone to try this, because honestly, I thought that it would be harder than it was, but it really wasn't. It wasn't hard at all. I was totally surprised. So much better than, like I said, printing your picture on paper, putting decoupage, and then putting it down, and then having to rub it off. This is so much easier. I wish I'd have known about this years ago. And tissue paper is pretty inexpensive too. I would say you would always want to do it on white tissue paper. That way you get the most out of your pictures. It's not going to interfere with your the background of your pictures. So for this one, I did put water around the edge of the photo here to make it the size that I needed, and then I just used my fingers to rip it off. It was pretty easy. And now I'm going to put my homemade Mod Podge on here. Now, if you wanted to, you could put your Mod Podge on, let it dry, and then use the iron method if you want to. I did not want to do that. Because believe it or not, the tissue paper I'm using, and I'm not sure exactly where it came from, but it's just white tissue paper that you would put in a gift bag. It's pretty forgiving. I mean, as you can see, I've laid it down and picked it up, laid it down and picked it up several times. And it doesn't really have too many wrinkles in it. I mean, if you did the iron method, then it probably wouldn't have any wrinkles in it at all. But I don't mind a few wrinkles here and there. So I'm trying to decide next what I want to do. So what I do is I take some of the white acrylic paint and go around the edges of the picture. This is where things went wrong. Don't do this. Whatever you do, don't do this. because this was a big no-no. Do not do this part. I left it in here so you could see. And then I decided, well, let me use some green distress ink around here. And then I just used my paintbrush to put it along the edge of the photo to go around. And I have some water here to spread it out a little bit. So you don't need to do this part either. I'm just trying to figure out how to fix this because I don't like the white around there. And then when I get finished with the green, I don't like the green around there. And you'll see. I left it in so you could see that we struggle too when we do crafts. We don't always get it right. And so we have to try different things until we get what we need to finish the product. I was determined to get this done and do it right because right now I'm thinking, oh my gosh, should I just stop and turn it over and start over on the back of this, or should I keep going? Well, I decided to keep going. But like you can see where the white paint is showing up through this green, and I'm trying a sponge dauber, putting it in the green ink and trying that. That doesn't work. And then I'm like, okay, you know what? Let me try some Kelly Green acrylic paint in some water. Let me try that. Let me get a drink here. And then I use the dauber. I'm like, okay, let me get some of this off on this paper and I'll put it on there. But again, that white acrylic paint I put around that photo is showing up underneath this green. I'm just like, oh my goodness, what have I done? But you know what? I just keep going. I was determined I was going to fix this. Okay, so now I'm going with the Admiral Blue. It's acrylic paint too. So I'm putting some of that on there, mixing it with the green. Because you know, we got the blue bonnets that really are more purple than blue. And then we got the green grass that's out there. So I'm like, well, let me try this. And see, as you can see, you can still see that white. You can see that white underneath there. And I was like, oh my goodness. What have I done? I have ruined this. I'm still thinking, oh, maybe I need to flip this over and do the back side and forget about this side. I do not want to throw this piece of wood away. So I've used green. I've used blue. What can I do next? Well, you get out. Well, I was going to use that periwinkle, but I'm like, no, that ain't right. And I used some purple. So what I got was petunia purple in the apple barrel. And I'm just showing you that's the Admiral Blue. And then it was the Kelly Green. So I'm basically mixing these three together. The Kelly Green, the Admiral Blue, and the petunia purple. And I think that gives me the color that I need that's going to work on this. Look at that. You can't see the white anymore. I was so thrilled. I was like, yes, yes, yes. So after all these, I finally found one that worked. I was so happy. So I gave this piece here to my daughter, and I gave the last one that we're going to do, I gave to my granddaughter that's in this photo here. And then the first two of my older grandchildren, I'm going to give those to my son and his wife. So these are all gifts, and I think they make really good gifts. And, you know, this is not that expensive. Like those other two pieces of wood that I used, those are from the Dollar Tree. So they were $1.25 each. And then I only used one piece of tissue paper for all of these. And then you got some paint and some ink for your printer. That's it. So I just added a little bit more purple. Getting a little bit of the green on there too. And dab that on there a little bit more. And look at that. That looks good. I was so relieved, let me tell you. Relieved. So I'm just dabbing, 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 dabbing. Okay, so there it is. Now we're going to flip it over and put on a hanger. And again, I just have this jute twine, and I'm going to put knots on both ends, and then I'm going to staple that onto the back. You want to make sure you place it in the correct place, you know, so that the picture hangs correctly. So you know up where the head is. So I'm going to flip it over and see if that's the right. So that's right. And then I'm just going to staple that onto the back. And then once I got this on, I took it outside and I sprayed it with some clear, I think it's semi-gloss, or you could use gloss, or actually you could use matte spray. And I think mine's from Rust-Oleum. So I did have a few places on here where the paint chipped off because I had chunks of that piece of wood there laying down there when I was putting the hanger on the back with the stapler. So I had to touch those up a little bit. And there it is. There's my third grandbaby. And look, she's holding Pumie. And he's next. There's Pumie. Pumie's going to be next. So again, well, this time I'm going to show you how I do the paper and stuff. So I have a piece of cardstock that's 8.5 by 11. And in the corners, I am putting a little piece of double-sided tape. And this double-sided tape I did get at the Dollar Tree. And I'm putting the shiny side of the tissue paper. That's the side I am taping to the cardstock. I think the hardest thing is getting the backing off of these pieces of double-sided tape. Very frustrating. And I just pull it so it's, you know, straight on there as much as possible. Just adding the other two pieces of tape to the bottom corners. And then once you get that on there, you want to cut off the excess tissue paper. And you can either use your X-Acto knife or you can use scissors. I find that an X-Acto knife works a little bit better than the scissors. However, it doesn't matter. So I just flipped it upside down and then just cut that extra piece off. Now I don't have to cut off the piece at the bottom because that's the piece that's going to hang out of my printer. So it doesn't matter. So I'm just measuring how big I want my picture to be for this. So this piece of wood is a little over 5 inches. So I think I printed up the picture to be 5 by 7, maybe. I think so. I don't know. Whatever it was. Just so it would fit on there. And there's a couple little places where you can see the white on the tissue paper, but we take care of that. So again, I'm just going to use my white acrylic paint and give this a couple coats. And this is just one of those rounds that you can get at the Dollar Tree, so it was $1.25. Again, these crafts are very, very affordable, and if you're giving them to people as gifts, it's a really nice gift. And they'll never think that you paid so little for it. I mean, don't get me wrong, a lot of work goes into it. So you do have time on your time invested into it. So again, I'm just putting my homemade Mod Podge on the front of this. And then I'm going to put my tissue paper on top of that. So Pumie is in the field of bluebonnets. Look at him, ain't he cute? And it brings out the blue in his eyes. So I think my youngest granddaughter actually took this picture of him. So I'm making this for her. And now I'm going to take my finger sander to sand this piece. But again, you can take just a fingernail file. It comes off pretty easily. There it is. And you can see the two little white spaces there of the tissue paper. So we're going to have to do something with that. But first of all, the edges got a little dry because I have the ceiling fan going. And I'm going to have to add some Mod Podge along the edges because my tissue paper isn't laying down all the way. Just on the edges there. So I just had some extra Mod Podge on my brush, and that's what I'm using to get those edges down. That looks pretty good. So now we're going to take care of those white spaces there. And I got some water in my dauber and that paint that was on that paper. And I'm going to try to use that. As you can see, it covers it up a little bit, but not enough. So I'm just trying to mix up this dry paint, make it come to life again. But it's just not working too well for me. So what I'm going to do is get those three paints again. The Admiral Blue, the Kelly Green, and I can't ever remember the purple. Petunia purple. Get all three of those. Put a little bit out there of each, and then mix those together. And I did get a little bit more green in this than blue this time, but actually that worked out in my favor because Pumie is mostly in the green grass. I mean, you can see some bluebonnets, but it's more grass than it is bluebonnets. So actually the greener that I got this worked out a lot better than the bluer that was on the previous photo that we did. But I was happy with the way all of these turned out. What do you guys think? Do you like these? And is this something you'll try? Like I said, this was my first time trying printing on the tissue paper. Look at that. I think it turned out good. There he is, hanging on my wall. You can kind of see his eyes popping a little bit. And there's all four of them. My Grands and Pumie. And again, I'm Liz with Liz's Crafts, and I want to thank everyone that watches my videos, and I want to thank my subscribers. Thank you so much. And if you know anybody that would like my videos, please feel free to share them with them. And if you like what you see, give me a thumbs up. Thank you.